Assalamualaikum and hello. The topic for my group is electric, and I will explain what is electric and also conductor and insulation as well as an example for the conductor. What is electric? 6 positive charge in the nucleus. If the number of electrons is unbalanced, the atom has a negative charge, more electron or positive less electrons. Electric is an electron conduction between the 2 points when there is a pressure difference between the 2 points. The movement of electron is the current movement electricity, a type of energy that occurs through the movement of electrons and protons is a pattern. Electricity is a source of the power that is often used to provide light, heat, building, or power on device such a computer. Electricity is an electron conduction between the 2 points when there is a pressure difference between the 2 points. All the matter consists of the thousands of atoms. At the center of the atom lies the nucleus. Across the nucleus there is cumin, call it an electron. This electron hover around the nucleus like a planet hovering around the sun. Each electron carry a negative charge. If an atom such has a carbon has 6 electrons, then this atom has 6 negative charge. But all the atom is material that does not have a charge. This shows that nucleus must have 6 positive cycles to balance 6 negative charge. What is a conductor? A conductor is a material that allows electricity to easily pass through them. There are more free electrons in the atom of conductor and are free to move from atom to atom. As a result, electric charges are free move from place to place. There is less resistance to movement of the electrons. Example of good conductor: aluminium, copper, gold, water, and people. An example of conductor. This is why electricity produced use copper and aluminium wire to carry power from generating plants to consumer. Conductor also allow heat energy to pass through them easily. Think this way: a conductor is like a tube with many loose balls. If you push one other loose ball into the end, there will be a knock-on effect until one pops out at the other end. Conductivity is the ability of a material to conduct electricity. Such a material is said to have high conductivity. What is insulator? An insulator is a material that does not allow electricity to easily pass through them. The electrons in the atom of insulator do not freely move from atom to atom. As a result, electric charge do not freely move from place to place. There is more resistance to movement of the electron. Insulation material is a material that cannot conduct electricity and heat. Example of good insulator: rubber, plastic, wood, and paper are all great examples of insulator. These materials are also poor conductor of heat energy. Electrical conductivity tells us how well a material will allow electricity to travel. Many people think of copper wire as something that has a great electrical conductivity. That's all. Thank you.
Renewable energy and non-renewable energy. Renewable energy is derived from natural processes that are replenished constantly, such as solar, wind, ocean, hydropower, biomass, geothermal resources, and biofuel and hydrogen. For example, renewable energy. Number 1, solar energy, biofuel energy, wind energy, biomass energy, and geothermal energy. Next, non-renewable energy. Renewable energy is most non-renewable energy source: fossil fuel, charcoal, petroleum, and natural gas.
Renewable energies. The wind. However many windmills it turns will never deplete itself. Wind energy is constantly renewed. It can rotate windmills and move sailboats. But it also creates electricity using very huge windmills. Rotating propellers fuel a big turbine placed inside, which will generate power without damaging our planet. Perhaps people will have to get used to these new structures. What kind of energy source is constantly renewed? Let's search a little more. Yes, of course. Where there is water, rivers, and lakes, there is energy. Hydropower, which produces electricity through turbine dams without damaging our planet. In fact, humanity has already become accustomed to the shape of these new structures. But let's search a little more for sources of energy that are constantly renewed. Where there is the sea, currents, and tide, there's energy. Tidal power, natural and renewable, produces electricity through the movement of underwater propellers without damaging our planet. People will have to get used to the shape of these new technologies. But let's look a little deeper for other energy sources that constantly renew themselves. In the depths of the Earth, where very, very, very high temperatures prevail, we can find a renewable source of energy: heat. The heat that we capture with long pipes to rotate a steam turbine in a geothermal power plant without damaging our planet. Heat, but just look up. What could be better than the sun? The thermal energy of the sun can be captured to turn cold water into hot water, of course. But the sun has another property: photovoltaic energy. The photovoltaic energy from the sun can be converted into electricity. Whole fields of photovoltaic panels can be installed, provided that people get used to the shape of this new environment. But let's look a little more, and there are other renewable sources. Biomass, trees and all plants. Biomass is renewable for humans because if they replace every plant they use, there will always be biomass. The Earth. On our planet Earth, humans have some very old, well-hidden sources of energy. Millions of years ago, organic materials, plants, marine animals, have decomposed on the seabed. Millions of years to convert organic substances exposed to great pressure into natural gas and fossil fuels. Then, entire forests are decomposed in turn, generation after generation. Far, deep into the earth, millions of years for the forest to turn into fossil energy. Yes, millions of years for it to become oil, natural gas, and coal. Energies that can never be renewed. Energies that we lose forever. And one day, people found, in the depths of the earth, these fossil energy sources that cannot renew themselves. Here's the history of these non-renewable fossil energy sources. From fossil energy sources, such as petrol, man can move vehicles and produce electricity. That's right, it's very useful. But the more we drive cars, the more we waste gasoline. Furthermore, thanks to fossil fuels, man can now feed electrical plants to generate electricity. And electricity, everybody needs it, for factories and family. But the factories consume a lot of electricity. They devour enormous amounts of fossil fuels. Fuel, yum yum. Gas, yum yum. Coal, yum yum. But see, the more these factories consume fossil fuels, the more they reject waste. Fuel, gas, coal. Pollution, pollution, pollution. Then, humans, who like to think, told themselves that they must try something else. Using the properties of a rare mineral, but alas not renewable, uranium. They managed to build nuclear power plants that do not pollute. But if uranium is not a fossil fuel, it's a mineral, and we don't really know how to get rid of it once we've used it. Made radioactive after use, it becomes extremely dangerous for humans. Fossil energies, pollution. Nuclear energy, pollution. But why do we use them? Well, because non-renewable energies are not that expensive, even if they are not eternal.
My name is Muhammad Tarim. ISMP RBT Technology. My matric number 2018-2081-003. Today I want to tell about how electricity works from power plant. Electricity is produced at an electricity power plant. Some fuel sources such as coal, oil, natural gas, and nuclear energy produce heat. The heat is used to boil water to create steam. The steam under high pressure is used to spin the turbine. The spinning turbine interacts with the system of a magnet to produce electricity. The electricity is transmitted a moving electron through a series of wires to home and business. Now I will show you a video about a power plant, how it works.
Welcome to Mechanismalar.com's educational video series. Half of the world's electricity is generated by coal power plants, and there are close to 3,000 large coal power plants around the world. In this video, we're going to show you how these controversial yet indispensable power plants work. The idea behind the power plant in this video is to show you how to convert energy stored in the coal to electricity. To increase burning efficiency, a powdered coal and air mixture enters the furnace. During the burning process, the chemical energy stored in the coal is released as heat to create high temperatures inside the furnace. This heat passes to the water inside the coils located in the furnace. The hot water is then forced to move to the boiler where it evaporates and generates high-pressure steam. The high-pressure steam is taken to the steam turbine, and the energy inside the steam is converted to mechanical energy. This mechanical energy is then transferred to the generator, where it will be converted to electricity. The generated electricity is finally transferred to the grid through a transformer and is ready to be consumed by the public. There are two major water cycles in any power plant, whether it is a coal, nuclear, or a gas power plant. The first is the closed-loop power-producing water cycle, which we call the steam cycle. The second is the open-loop cooling water cycle. No thermal power plant can operate without these two cycles. Let's begin by describing the closed-loop power cycle, or the steam cycle, starting from the furnace. First, intense heat inside the furnace heats the water within the coils, which is coming from the condenser. This heated water is forced to the boiler where it evaporates. The pressure inside the boiler can be more than 200 bars. The high-pressure steam obtained in the boiler is sent to the steam turbine, which passes the steam between fixed and rotating sections, converting the energy stored in the steam to mechanical energy. The steam leaves the turbine at close to vacuum pressure, near condensation temperature. This saturated dry steam then enters the condenser, where it is condensed to water by the cold water coming from the river. Finally, the condensed water is pumped to the furnace, where it starts heating the coils inside the furnace to complete its cycle. Here's a question for you to think about that we'll answer in our next video. Why is a very small portion of pressurized steam diverted to the bearing section of the turbine, where the low-pressure steam leaves the turbine? Now let's discuss the second cycle, the open-loop cooling cycle, which starts by pumping cold water from the upstream section of the river into the condenser inside the steel tubes. While saturated steam is condensed to water, the water from the river is heated. The heated water is then dispensed to the downstream section of the river. To protect ecological stability of the river, the temperature rise should be kept to a minimum. In short, dispelled water makes the river or lake warmer than it otherwise would be. This is why some marine animals, such as manatees, spend their winter close to the power plants to protect themselves from the harsh winter temperatures. This concludes the first part of our presentation about coal power plants. The second presentation will describe key facts about the 400 megawatt coal power plant. Thank you for watching our videos and for your continued support. Please don't forget to subscribe if you have not done so already.
Hydroelectricity is electricity made by generators that are pushed by movement of water. It is usually made with dams that block a river to make a reservoir or collect water that is pumped there. When the water is released, the pressure behind the dam forces the water down pipes that lead to a turbine. This causes the turbine to turn, which turns a generator, which makes electricity. This renewable energy method makes about 1/6 of the world's electricity. It produces less pollution than the fire of steam engines do. Generating method of hydroelectricity. Method number 1 is conventional or dams. Most hydroelectric power comes from the potential energy of dam water, driving a water turbine and generator. The power extracted from the water depends on the volume and on the difference in height between the source and the water outflow. This height difference is called the head. A large pipe, the penstocks, deliver water from the reservoir to the turbine. Method number 2 is pump storage. This method produces electricity to supply high peak demands by moving water between reservoirs at different elevations. At time of low electrical demand, the excess generation capacity is used to pump water into the higher reservoir. When the demand becomes greater, water is released back into the lower reservoir through a turbine. Pump storage schemes currently provide the most commercially important means of large-scale grid energy storage and improve the daily capacity factor of the generation system. Pump storage is not an energy source and appears as a negative number in listing. Method number 3 is run-of-the-river. Run-of-the-river hydroelectric stations are those with small width or no reservoir capacity, so that only the water coming from upstream is available for generation at that moment, and any oversupply must pass unused. A constant supply of water from a lake or existing reservoir upstream is a significant advantage in choosing site for the run-of-the-river. In the United States, run-of-the-river hydropower could potentially provide 60,000 megawatts, about 13.7% of total use in 2011 if continuously available. And method number 3 is tide. A tidal power station makes use of the daily rise and fall of ocean water due to tides. Such sources are highly predictable, and if conditions permit, construction of a reservoir can also be dispatchable to generate power during high demand period. Less common type of hydro schemes use water kinetic energy or undammed source such as undershot water wheel. Tidal power is viable in a relatively small number of locations around the world. Size any type of hydroelectric facility. Small. Small hydro stations may be connected to conventional electrical distribution network as a source of low-cost renewable energy. Alternatively, small hydro projects may be built in isolated areas that would be uneconomic to serve from a network, or in areas where there is no national electrical distribution network. Since small hydro projects usually have minimal reservoir and civil construction works, They are seen as having a relatively low environmental impact compared to large hydro. This decreased environmental impact depends strongly on the balance between stream flow and power production. Micro. Micro hydro is a term used for hydroelectric power installation that typically produce up to 100 kW of power. This installation can provide power to an isolated home or small community or are sometimes connected to electric power networks. There are many of these installations around the world, particularly in developing nations, as they can provide an economical source of energy without purchase of fuel. Micro-hydro systems complement photovoltaic solar energy system because in many areas water flow and thus available hydropower is highest in the winter when solar energy is at a minimum. Pico. Pico hydro is a term used for hydroelectric power generation of under 5 kW. It is useful in small, remote communities that require only small amount of electricity. For example, to power one or two fluorescent light bulbs and a TV or radio for a few homes. Even smaller turbines of 200 to 300 watts may power a single home in a developing country with a drop of only 1 meter. A pico hydro setup is typically run of the river, meaning that dams are not used, but rather pipes divert some of the flow, drop this down a gradient and through the turbine before returning it to the stream.
Solar energy is radiant light and heat from the sun that is harnessed using a range of ever-evolving technologies such as solar heating, photovoltaics, solar thermal energy, solar architecture, molten salt power plants, and artificial photosynthesis. It is an important source of renewable energy, and its technology are broadly characterized as either passive solar or active solar, depending on how they capture and distribute solar energy or convert it into solar power. Active solar techniques include the usage of photovoltaic system, concentrate solar power, and solar water heating to harness the energy. Passive solar techniques include orienting a building to the sun, selecting material with favorable thermal mass or light dispersing properties, and designing space that naturally circulate air. Solar power is the conversion of sunlight into electricity, either directly using photovoltaics or indirectly using concentrated solar power. Concentrated solar power system use lens or mirror and tracking systems to focus a large area of sunlight into a small beam. Photovoltaic convert light into electric current using photoelectric effect. Solar power is anticipated to become the world's largest source of electricity by 2050, with solar photovoltaics and concentrated solar power contributing 16 and 11% to the global overall consumption, respectively. In 2016, after another year of rapid growth, solar generated 1.3% of global power. Solar energy can be used for water heating, space cooling, and process heat generation. Concentrating solar power system use lens or mirror and tracking systems to focus a large area of sunlight into a small beam. The concentrated heat is then used as a heat source for a conventional power plant. A wide range of concentrating technologies exist. The most developed are the parabolic trough, the concentrating linear Fresnel reflector, the Stirling dish, and the solar power tower. Various techniques are used to track the sun and focus light. In all of these systems, a working fluid is heated by the concentrated sunlight and is then used for power generation of energy storage. In the last 2 decades, photovoltaics, also known as solar PV, has evolved from a pure niche market of small-scale applications toward becoming a mainstream electricity source. Solar cell is a device that converts light directly into electricity using the photoelectric effect. The first solar cell was constructed by Charles Fritz in 1880s. In 1931, a German engineer, Dr. Bruno Lensch, developed a photocell using silver selenide in place of copper oxide. Although the prototype selenium cells convert less than 1% of incident light into electricity, both Ernst Werner von Siemens and James Clerk Maxwell recognized the importance of this discovery. Following the work of Russell Hall in the 1940s, researchers Gerald Pearson, Kelvin Fuller, and Daryl Chapin created the crystalline silicon solar cell in 1954. These early solar cells cost $286 per watt and reach efficiencies of 4.5 to 6%. By 2012, available efficiencies exceeded 20%, and the maximum efficiency of research photovoltaics was in excess of 40%.